Hey, what's up guys? Sloth King here. Today I'm working on my 2008 4th gen Toyota 4Runner and I'm replacing my lower control arms and the alignment camber bolts. So this procedure will work on years 2003 to 2008 / early 09. As long as it's just a 4th gen, the procedure will be pretty much the same. So I went to go get an alignment the other week, about 2 weeks ago, and they could not align the camber properly because they said that I have some seized bolts. So that is exciting to hear. So I decided to go through and if I have to cut out these bolts, I'm going to just replace the lower control arm as one unit. That way I don't have to press out bushings and then put new ones in there. You can do that if you want, but I just want to get it done in one giant step. This is going to be pretty tedious. Hopefully it's going to go smooth, but I'm preparing for the worst, just like you guys should as well. Let me go over what we're going to need, and then let's jump right into this. All right, first things first, you're going to need a jack and some jack stands, some wheel chocks, and then you will need a torque wrench that will go up to about 200 foot-pounds. Get yourself some gloves. You will need some hammers, mallets, pry bars, a pickle fork, just to get the lower ball joint out if it's stuck in there. You will need some sort of pliers and cutters to get the cotter pins out. You will need some wrenches, mainly a 19mm wrench. Get yourself a ratchet and some sockets. I'm using a 1/2 inch because we're going to be unbolting stuff that is pretty tight and you don't want to use a small ratchet. Get a pry bar. I am using an impact gun. I highly recommend that. If you don't have one, that's okay. But you will need a reciprocating saw and some carbide blades. These carbide blades, they're a little bit more money, but it will help cut through your seized bolts easier, and you're going to use a lot less of them. So I'm preparing for the worst, like I told you before. You will need a new set of camber adjustment bolts, which I will list all the parts in the description below. I got these off of a site called Amayama. They are a Japanese distributor. So I got these bolts for half the price instead of going to the dealer, and they are all OEM. So I will list that link in the description below, along with everything else that you will need for this. Then I got 2 new lower control arms by Beck Arnley. After doing some research, you want to stay away from the Moog ones because their ball joints suck. There are some Mevotech ones that have upgraded ball joints in them that are better, or you can go OEM. OEM is always a safe option, but they are pretty expensive per arm. From what I was reading, Beck Arnley, I think it's the actual OEM distributor for our lower control arms, or at least the bushings and the ball joints. I tried looking everywhere and that's what I found, but don't quote me on that. Last thing, you will need a paint marker just to mark where your current alignment is, and then you can copy it over to like these cam adjustment lines on here from your old ones. We just want to try to get it in the same spot so that we can go to the alignment shop as soon as possible and get all that sorted out. I also forgot to mention that while we're doing this, we want to pick up some anti-seize. So I have some copper anti-seize. We're going to put it on these bolts. So when we throw it in the lower control arm, we can prevent any seizing in the future. So hopefully that will hold up over the years. Since these just go in dry, we want to make sure that we can lubricate them. So with all that being said, let me go ahead and throw the 4Runner up in the air, get the wheels off, and let's start digging into this. All right, guys, so now that we have everything up in the air, the first thing we are going to do is grab our paint marker, take some pictures of each of the plate and exactly where they are. Okay, so there's this mark right here. The last mark on this little plate, I'm just going to draw a paint line from here to like the top of this like little corner here. We are going to transfer that same mark over on our new plate so that way we can get our current alignment in the same spot. So we're going to do that for this plate. There's going to be one on, I believe, the back side right here. Yeah, we're going to do that there. We're going to do the rear arm section the same exact way. So if you need to clean any of this off with a brush, go ahead and do it. And then let's go ahead and throw our paint lines on and begin disassembling all of this stuff. So I got it cleaned off. I'm gonna grab this line right here. Hit that. You know, make sure that this line really matches up right there. All right, guys, I got it all marked. I actually decided to do both sides just to make the alignment process a little bit easier. So let's take off this lower ball joint section right here. So this is going to be a 19 millimeter, and then we can use our pliers to take out this cotter pin and then take this castle nut off. All right, so I hope you guys can see this. Just go ahead and undo your cotter pin. Sometimes these are stuck, like this one kind of is. Just go ahead and grab your pliers of some sort. Just grab the cotter pin and pull it out. This is going to be a 24 millimeter, and then these side two bolts are going to be 19. So let's take these off. All right, now this should come right off unless the ball joint is stuck. We can also put our castle nut on, grab our hammer and hit this, or just put our pickle fork right up in here and then just knock it out. So let's see if the hammer does it first. And we're in a weird spot. We have to use the pickle fork. I like to keep the castle nut on there a little bit anyway, just so the whole part doesn't fly off. I need to get in a better spot. A little stuck. Uh-oh. That's not what I wanted. All right, looks like the pickle fork is not getting this off, but since it's already separated from the hub, we can probably get it off, like off the car. That's a pain. That way we can get like an angle hitting it like this way. So let's move on and take off the shock and then remove these camber bolts. All right, so for the shock, you're going to have a 19 millimeter nut, and then the bolt head on the other side is also a 19 millimeter. So get your 19 on there and then grab a 19 wrench, hold it, and then take it off. Might be easier just to get the nut loose first. Just like that. All right, yeah, do that instead. That was way easier, wow. All right, keep in mind that the washer goes on and then you have the nut that goes on afterwards. So usually you are going to need a punch to take this out. If you don't have a punch, you can use a sacrificial screwdriver or some other piece of metal of some sort. So what I like to do first is just to put the nut on a couple threads, grab your hammer, and then tap it through. And then the rest of the way, you can grab like a pry bar or hammer or a punch, and then just tap the bolt out. Just like that. And what I like to do with the hardware is just put it back on exactly how I took it off and then set it aside. All right, so now we can tackle the front portion of the arm. It is also going to be a 19 millimeter. So get your wrench on the inside, hold it still, and then you're going to use a 19 socket on the outside, and then we're going to take it out. All right. Huh. Okay, so that one came out pretty nice. Now we can get the rear. All right, so the rear, we have the same deal. We have a 19mm bolt right here, and then just a nut on this side. All right. That is off. This might be stuck, or it will just slide off like that. Now, this should just come right out. Well, you have to hit it with a hammer, but kind of rotate it, have it pop out, and then boom, this is your rear bolt. So just keep track of how everything goes. There's a groove in here, just throw that on here, put the nut on. I'm gonna show you how the new hardware goes anyway, but it's just for safe insurance to have it like this. All right, so now we're back on the front here. So the only thing that's holding this control arm in right now is this sleeve. So there's a sleeve that goes through and then the bolt goes through, like, you know, I showed you before. But I have my jack just supporting this a little bit, so that way we can start taking this out. Now this is the one that you might have to cut, but for here, this little plate on the back, we're going to pop it off. It should just pop right out if you can fit your pry bar in there. You might have to get like a smaller pry bar head. So let's see if this one might fit in here. Or you can just, you know, put the pry bar in here and whack it with a hammer a couple times until the plate falls out. Let's see if that works. Might need to grab another pry bar and pop it on the bottom. All right, so that's off now. Set that aside. And now let's focus on taking this out right here. So I'm just going to grab my hammer, try to maybe knock it with a pry bar, see if I can try to get part of it through. We will see though. All right, we might have to cut that out. I was trying to get it so that way, you know, the sleeve can come through, so I just have to cut one side of it. It's not really working. All right, so what I just did, I put a little bit more pressure on this arm, and I have a 1-inch wrench right here, and it's rotating fine. So maybe the passenger side was the one that was seized up.
2 hours later.
Huh, all right, so it's literally just coming out. All right, so I'm just rotating it while I'm putting pressure on the pry bar like this, and it looks like it's coming out just fine. It is pretty rusted. Oh, that's such an awful noise. Oh, here it comes. Yay! Sweet. Now we should be able to just lower this jack and this whole thing might just come right out. Let's see what happens. Just like I suspected. Sweet. All right, guys, driver's side control arm is officially out. Now, I just need to take this bracket off. I don't know why it's like stuck on there so bad. Anyway, let me get my pickle fork and then probably rest it up against my tire and just whack on it for a second. All right, guys, so I had just gotten the knuckle off of that lower ball joint, and then it literally just started raining. So this is awesome. It wasn't supposed to rain for the next few hours. So hopefully this subsides pretty soon and we can pick back up. So yeah, I will update you guys whenever we get no rain. All right, so I have my hardware already put together and I made my paint markings. So the front of the control arm will be your cam subassembly, the toe. So I got my markings on here. I got my markings over here. Now this loose one, this piece is going to go on the inside. The one with the bolt that you slide through, that'll be for the front side. And then make sure that you have the adjustment points facing up whenever they go in. The rear one will be the subassembly, the camber bolt right here. So it's going to be the same thing. So when it came out, we have the nut on this side. And then we have the actual bolt section that goes through. So it's kind of hard to take off these stickers. So try to take it off as best as you can. Then apply some anti-seize all the way through on here. So that way it can rotate and stuff. Just a little bit on here. Try and you can get a little bit on the threads, but don't like extremely overdo it. I'll show you after I like lube everything. I'll show you what it's supposed to look like. So let me go ahead and lube these up and then get my control arm and then put it into place. All right, so this is what the bolts look like after I put the anti-seize on them. The front one, you want to be a little more liberal with the anti-seize because this goes inside the bushing and then the bolt goes through. So I only did it on here and not so much on the threads. And then on that front little camber plate for this front one right here, I put a little bit of anti-seize on there and just a little bit on the inside there. So I got my arm in place, and make sure whenever you take off your lower control arm coverings, there's like this little plastic cover that goes over it. Just pop that off. These are not factory ball joints because the factory ball joints do not have grease fittings. So you will need to add some grease fittings if you get the Beck Arnley control arms. So keep that in mind. Now let's go ahead and install this. So while we have the axis for our ball joint, let's go ahead and throw our Zerk fitting on, and then we're going to use a Moly Lithium type of grease. So it's going to be more of like a dark gray. Put the Zerk fitting in there, and then we're going to tighten it down. There's no spec on it, so just go like hand tight. Since this is small, you don't want to snap it off. There we go. Now go ahead and pop your grease fitting on here. And then we're just going to fill it up until we see a little bit of grease come out of that boot. Right there. See how it's coming out of the boot just a little bit? You are full. Now go ahead and wipe this up, and then we can install the lower control arm the rest of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and put our front bolt through first. This will make it so our lives are a little bit easier. Now that's in place, we can go ahead and pop it into the notch, and then we will get our markings aligned when we start tightening this down. Now let's go ahead and throw the rear bolt in. Remember, this slides through just like that, and then the plate and the nut goes on the back. Just like so. align the hash marks on the plate, and then just put your nut on. And then now, before we tighten anything down, let's go back on this side. All right, now that we got the bolts through, let's go ahead and finish this off. Let's put this bolt through here, and then we can start threading on our alignment section right here. Now that is in place, we can go ahead and start installing all the stuff on the lower control arm, and then we can start torquing these down. Now remember, these we're going to torque down with the proper ride height enabled. So we're just going to put our floor jack underneath the control arm, jack it up a little bit, and then we can go ahead and torque these down. And when I do that, I'll go through all the torque specs. Now we can go ahead and start lining up our shock. Remember, we're going to pass the bolt through like this. Washer, and then the nut. And then now we can put the ball joint part on. All right, for the ball joint part, this round piece is going to face towards the engine, just like that. And it is recommended for the two outer bolts to put a little bit of red Loctite on there. And then you can go ahead and torque it down. So let's go ahead and pop this on. I like to just lightly thread the castle nut on there while we get these bolts in. All right, these two bolts get torqued down to 166 foot-pounds, and then the castle nut is 103 foot-pounds. All right, 166. There we go. Whew. And then remember, we have to line up our hole here so that way we can put our cotter pin through it. So you might have to go past. Never loosen the castle nut when you have to put it through after you tighten it. Just tighten it a little bit more until the hole lines up so you can throw that cotter pin through it. There we go. We have to go a little bit more to get that hole to line up. There we go. Now we can throw our cotter pin in it. I like to put the cotter pin through the easy axis, the easier side to get through. So if we need to take it off in the future, we're not fighting this bolt or knuckle over here. We can just easily grab it and pull it out. And then just bend it over the top. And then just bend this like sideways or whatever, just somewhere so it just won't pop out. Next, you're going to line up your paint marks for your camber adjustment and your toe adjustment. And then you can go ahead and jack up the control arm. That way it's almost at like pretty much a ride height level, so we can start torquing down the shock body and then our bolts here. All right, the shock is going to be 100 foot-pounds. There we go. All right, now that I have my marks lined up, this set and the rear set is going to be torqued to 100 foot-pounds. So all I'm going to do right now, I'm going to hold this adjustment plate back here and then get my impact so I can get it pretty much almost tight. That way I don't have to sit here and just try to torque it down the whole entire time. All right, now we can torque it down. There we go. It's torqued down. Now let's get the rear one. And make sure you get your paint marks lined up. That's pretty much right there. And then this rear one just needs to get moved. And right about there. You're going to need your other wrench so you can lock down the nut at least. All right, now that should stay in place. Just take your impact, get it close, and then we can torque it down the rest of the way. There we go. All done. All right, there we go, guys. Driver's side is done. Everything is torqued down. I got my paint marks pretty much lined up where they need to go. You're gonna do the same procedure on the other side of the car. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And it's exactly the same procedure. Now, if I need to cut out the bolt, I will go ahead and update you guys and film that section. But if I don't, then yeah, you just need to do the same thing to the other side and then you will be done. All right, I will update you guys whenever I am done with everything. All right, guys, so I'm on the passenger side and just this rear bolt is stuck. This front one moves just fine. So we are going to have to cut this one out. So let me go ahead and get the reciprocating saw and let's start cutting. All right, so you want to get it in between the bushing right here. And then same thing on this side. It's gonna be kind of difficult on this side, but I'm gonna put it in between the metal bushing right here, not this, this piece of the frame. So we're gonna go in between so we cut through it instead of damaging our mating surface. All right.
"11 minutes later."
Alrighty, guys, I got it all cut out and I put the bolt back in on this side so that it wouldn't just drop. Probably took about 15 minutes to cut this through. Now I gotta pry this off right here, and after you do that, you just assemble everything again. Oops, my camera died as I was trying to get this out, but what I did, I put my impact on this side, and since this piece of the bushing was still like a little bit stuck on the bolt, I just kind of like got this loose so it can move, and then I just put my impact on it and then just hammered it until it just like broke free. So that's one way that you can get this piece off. Or if you feel comfortable cutting more on the inside of this, which I don't feel comfortable, that's why I cut on the inside of the bushing. But I did not want to damage any part of this frame. So now this is free. If you had the one up front that was stuck, you literally just put the hacksaw in between here and you just cut it off. And I only used one blade. Where did it go? This the carbide teeth actually held up really nice. I definitely recommend these. Now let's go ahead and finish up the job. Alrighty, guys, I just got done with both sides, and the passenger side was the one with the seized rear. I believe it was the camber bolt, might have been the toe. I forget which one was which now. But yeah, so that carbide blade actually worked out really well. I spent maybe about 15 minutes cutting through it. I was just really careful. I didn't want to like push down too hard. And yeah, so that was probably the worst side that I dealt with. But yeah, I'm glad I did it. Tomorrow, I'm gonna go ahead and go get an alignment, and now I should be fine for a while. Just to touch on the Beck Arnley lower control arms. So the ball joint that is on it, it is a greasable ball joint, and the factory one is not. So yeah, that's a interesting thing about it. So you want to use a Moly, Lithium Moly lube whenever you go ahead and install that, or you guys can just go ahead and get a sealed ball joint. When I said earlier that the Beck Arnley might be the factory, the ball joint might not be the factory, but maybe the bushings are. But either way, just a heads up for you guys. Either way, I got it done. I got it greased, and we'll see how long this lasts. If it fails anytime soon, I will let you guys know. But I'm so happy to be done with this. Anyways, if you guys found this video helpful, awesome. I'm glad I helped you guys. Go ahead and check that description for all the camber and toe bolts that you will need. And yeah, I hope you guys have an easier time than I did, even though mine wasn't too bad. I just hope that you guys don't have to cut those bolts out. Anyways, like always, I'll catch you guys on the next ride.